The Prince of Egypt is an old DreamWorks movie made in 1998. The film follows the story of Moses in the chapter of Exodus, more specifically the liberation of the enslaved Hebrews, all the way from the time of his birth to receiving the Ten Commandments. Even if you don't know the movie, you probably heard its music or saw a clip of it somewhere.
Stop it. Stop! Stop it! Leave that man alone!
It was an amazing film with a soundtrack so good you could catch yourself singing it in the shower, or wherever you sing song these days. I cannot emphasize it enough how captivating this film is, to the point of where I was able to sit down with my non-Christian friends and everyone enjoyed the movie, before we all started playing Magic. However, there was one element to the film that hasn't quite left my brain that I needed to make a video on. That being just how perfect of an antagonist Ramses is. There are many different flavors of antagonists out there. There's the just plain cruel kind. There's the kind that, through a cracked lens, is made the hero of the story. But Ramses is the kind of protagonist that is simply trying to prove himself. Or rather, prove his father wrong. Let's rewind a bit, and watch the story mostly through Ramses' perspective. The current pharaoh just ordered a culling of the Hebrews, while his wife and child were relaxing in what seems to be a pool area, the gardens, I'm not entirely sure. But the point being, here's this weird basket. What's inside? A baby! Well, we gotta take him in, says the mother. And I think Ramses was too young to remember the situation, because it seems he, like Moses, doesn't know Moses is adopted in the future.
I'm not who you think I am.
What are you talking about?
Go ask the man I once called father.
Fast forward to a good couple of years, and Moses and Ramses are brothers. And I mean genuine brothers, competitive yet playful with each other. However, one day during a race across the city, they ended up breaking the nose off the statue of Pharaoh and causing a sand dam to collapse, leading to their audience in front of their father, the Pharaoh himself. During this, they're both shoot out pretty hard, but most importantly, this is exchange between the two parties.
One damaged temple does not destroy centuries of tradition, but one weak link can break the chain of a mighty dynasty.
This is arguably the most important scene when it comes to Ramses as a character, because this will forever stick with him and push him to be the strongest pharaoh he can be when he inherits the title. After a little bit of time, a ceremony was held, naming Ramses Prince Regent, allowing him the opportunity to prove his worth. However, to show the love to his brother, he appointed Moses to Royal Chief Architect, which I guess is like King of Engineers or something, and I would love to be a King of Engineers. The rest of the night most likely goes smoothly for Ramses. However, unknown to him, Moses received a rather life-changing revelation that night. Moses was born a Hebrew. He was supposed to be a slave. Ramses didn't know, nor hear this despite how loudly Moses sang,
"My trappings and belongings I belong."
But he did get a vision from the god, supposedly. So, the next day, as one does, he sets out to bring the god's vision to life. He has a small chat with his brother before Moses seems to start tweaking and beckoning one of the workers, with rights, to leave that poor man alone. And when the worker didn't comply, he was murdered. Moses just murdered a man in fairly lukewarm blood. Before he started to make a break for it, Ramses asked Moses what's been happening, only to be pushed aside. Ramses confronted Moses before he left Egypt and held an actual conversation with him. Moses is dealing with the reality that he just killed a man for doing his job. Technically a very cruel job, but his job nonetheless. Meanwhile, Ramses is saying, hey, I've got power. I can make it so that never happened. You'll continue to be a free man. Ramses is pleading for Moses to stay, and you can see the desperation to fix this in any way.
If I say day is night, it will be written, and you will be what I say you are. I say you are innocent.
Ramses is pleading for Moses to stay. You can see the desperation to fix this in the way he talks to Moses. Moses put his foot down and drops a bomb on Ramses to get the truth from his father. Oh, and one more thing.
Moses! Moses!
Chances are he goes back to his father and immediately gets lore dumped on what actually happened. We don't know a lot of what happened from there, but we know a few things. First, the most important, after gaining power, he is struck with a feeling of helplessness, of weakness, that despite his new power, it wasn't enough to get his only brother to stay. Second, his father dies sometime after and he inherits the title of pharaoh, claiming a wife and having a child. Now he had to sit with these emotions of weakness from Moses and despair from the death of his father for a few years, letting it all brew in his mind before finally, oh, hello there, Moses. Now this is a pretty big W for Ramses at first. Life is good. Brother is back. Things can finally be as they were. Then Moses turns that entire idea on its head and demands his people be let go. So Moses didn't come back to be reunited with Ramses. He came to free the slaves, the entire workforce. Oh, this is a strange encounter. So naturally, he asks on whose authority, and Moses claims on the God of Hebrews as his authority. Ramses naturally calls cap, and Moses turns his stick into a snake, giving Ramses a huh moment. The pharaoh then calls upon his own priests to size up and summons 2 snakes instead of the 1. Sure, your 2 snakes might have gotten eaten by Moses' snake, but this is still a win in Ramses' book nonetheless. After his overwhelming W over Moses, he pulls Moses to a back room to catch up, like for real this time. Ramses flexes that he's not the weak link by saying he's even better than dear old dad. This iconic line happens.
He was a great leader.
His hands bore the blood of thousands of children.
Slave.
Moses says, "Hey Ramses, could you stop enslaving my people?" And it started to click in Ramses' head that this is in fact not a bit. Moses truly did not come back to see Ramses. And to really rub salt in the wound, Moses returns a ring he once kept from his old life to Ramses. Ramses then, as the kids say, crashes out before killing Moses with his mind power. After snapping back to reality, he proclaims, "God is for thee, but not for me." Or, something like that. This scene happens.
Rameses, please, you must listen.
I will not be the weak link.
Clearly showing that he did take it pretty hard, what his dad said to him all those years ago. So fast forward a bit more, the next time Ramses sees his brother Moses is when he was having a nice outing with his son. And Moses, being the man he is, casually turns his whole river into blood. I'm not even gonna bother getting into the effects that this would have on the economy, but I can say for certain this probably isn't very good. Ramses cringed at this, demanded his sorcerers do the same, and he was like, "Oh Moses, you silly little man, this is just red for you. Be gone with you, O jester of Hebrews." Now, it's probably a bit more important context that in the story itself, Moses comes back to Ramses each time before bringing down a plague. But from what I remember, while minding his own business, Ramses is just hit with plague after plague. You know, from the movie, of course. This is somewhat like you're having a day off from work and you decide you want some Taco Bell. You walk outside and find a bunch of birds have pooped on your car. Well, this is rather inconvenient. Well, those birds have also had knives and slashed your tires. Well, this is a lot of work for Taco Bell. But it turns out those same birds have taken over the local Taco Bell by force using the knives that they had. Well, I could always go to another fast food joint, one would think, but then your car explodes. All the while, those birds are singing a really cool song. This is what's happening to Ramses, but instead of birds, it's Moses, and instead of all those events I just described, it's genuinely massive acts of nature that are terrorizing you and your people, and once again, probably devastating the economy. After that, Moses approaches him for an audience once more, asking for Moses' people to be let go. Moses actually has quite a persuasive discussion, appealing to Ramses' sense of brotherhood, and it works for a bit, before all of a sudden, boom, child.
I'm frightened. Why is he here? Isn't that the man who did all this?
A strong ruler wouldn't kneel before his enemy. This thought of being the weak link infesting Ramses' mind even now. Ramses gets low-key racist.
I do. You Hebrews have been nothing but trouble. My father had the right idea about how to deal with your people.
Rameses.
And promises to purge the Hebrews once more, after some well-deserved beauty sleep, of course, and Ramses' son is dead. What the fuck? Well, it turns out overnight, the god of the Hebrews pulled out an Uno reverse card and killed the firstborn son of all those that didn't believe in him. I want to put a quick pause here. So, most of my fellows know I'm a Christian. I really enjoy playing D&D as well. And this is gonna loop back in, I promise. In the typical sense, when I hear the word smite, I think of a powerful blow filled with holy energy. But the smite in this movie being a simple last breath of the victim, not only is that really cool, it's extremely chilling. In this movie, the god of the Hebrews isn't trying to show off. He doesn't make this a grand death, it's more a sad act. Just want to say how cool that is. Back to the script. Ramses is deep with grief. His whole world is collapsing around him. His gods failed to protect him and his people. All these plagues, all this suffering, and his gods didn't lift a single finger. Oh hey, Moses is here. Ramses had enough at this point, which is pretty fair. I most likely would have folded at the river turning into blood. Regardless, Ramses dismissed the Hebrews to leave Egypt. However, the love he once had for his brother, I believe, is gone. I think the only reason he doesn't strike down Moses here is out of fear of what else might happen should he continue to fight against the God of the Hebrews. It doesn't stop him from being angry with Moses, though. Ramses takes a whole minute, maybe a good couple of hours, before saying, "Screw it, if the gods go quiet, then I shall shout." He assembles an army and goes after Moses, not for the sake of his gods, not for the sake of the revenge of his son, though it might play a small part into that, but to prove once and for all that he is not the weak link that brings Egypt to its knees. When he finds Moses, his army has them pinned against the Red Sea. Now this is an easy win before, all of a sudden, fire tornado. I didn't realize we were playing Helldivers. Once remembering that he is in fact not a Helldiver, the tornado goes away and, you don't see that every day. What are you waiting for, boys? Let's get this dub. Ramses and his army charges in, although chaotically, after the Hebrews. However, as we all know, when nearing their goal, they fail to clutch up. Ramses' life is spared, maybe from luck, maybe from the will of God. We'll never know. Ramses is stranded here. We're not entirely sure if he makes it back to his kingdom or not, but in this moment we know a few things. He has lost his slaves, his army, his gods, his kingdom, and his son. And he calls out to Moses one last time. Only to realize that he had also lost his brother. We never know what becomes of him, but what we do know is that in his pursuit of being the strongest link in the chain, he broke. We've witnessed Ramses rise and fall from power. All the while, he just felt human. We see him laugh, we see him mourn, we see his pride, and we see his shame. He's the antagonist of this film. But he doesn't just all of a sudden become one, it's more like a seed that was planted in him, inside his very soul, from just one moment that we get to see blossom into this toxic trait of pride or perhaps fear of proving his father right. Regardless of whichever it is, that trait is what turns him into the perfect protagonist. He's not a twist villain that acts nice and all of a sudden backstabs our character. He's not an outwardly evil guy with no remorse for his actions. He also is certainly not a secret hero of the story either. He's just a man cursed with the pride of a pharaoh.